Hey there, Jason here, the founder of Lean Change. Thought I would just do a quick video with some of the questions I wasn't able to answer from the Change Leadership Conference this week. So last year I spoke at the Change Leadership Conference in Toronto about AI, and it was pretty introductory. And this year I was invited back to do another talk, so I thought it would be interesting to compare just how much has changed over the year. So what I'm going to do for this video is just give you a very quick overview of what I talked about just in case you missed the session, and then I'm going to get into the questions from the online chat community that I wasn't able to answer. Okay, to quickly set some context for the questions that I'm going to be answering a bit later on, I'll just show you the four main, I guess, ideas of the talk. So I wanted to take things I talked about last year and see how much that has changed over a year. So last year, you might remember that LLMs or large language models, think ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, etc., they were very limited in what they were trained on. So for example, if you asked it about a current event that happened the day before, it wouldn't know. It would say, sorry, I've only been trained on data up until 2023. Now it's real time and the data capabilities is astronomically better than it used to be. In fact, Copilot, if you use that, it used to limit you to 5 prompts and very limited responses, and then you had to wait a day. So there was a lot of throttling going on because the capability, number one, of the hardware the stuff was running on, and the language models was super expensive. So some of these implementations wanted to limit it. So, you know, today they don't. So it should be obvious why this is a benefit. Think of how much data you can throw at any of these LLMs now. I threw a piece of data at it that was about 70 pages long. I think it was 120,000 words, something like that. 30 seconds gave me a summary of it, and there is no way you would be able to do that last year. You've probably also seen image and video creation is getting frighteningly, if that's a word, realistic now. So the lines of what's real and what isn't is getting really blurred. So the capability of the models is just incredible compared to what it was last year. Last year, prompt engineering was a big thing. I've read many articles about how it was the shortest lived career of all time because it's kind of not there anymore. But the interesting thing was when I did this in the talk, somebody who had joined virtually said it's still one of the top jobs in Brazil, which I don't know. I didn't really fact check it, but prompt engineering is not as mysterious as it used to be. So today, it's not just about the prompt. People have learned it's not just about the thing I asked the system, it's about how the instructions have been created for how that thing behaves. It's so many other different factors, how the model has been trained, the language model that you're using, because some, like Google Deep Research or the new version of o3 from ChatGPT has much more capabilities now, so it can be more of a deep thinker. But I thought this was cool about something that has changed is it's not just about the prompt and the response you get, but Anthropic is working on constitutional AI. So your language model will behave based on a set of principles, which is good and scary all at the same time. So think about this. You'd be able to train a model to align to your philosophy around change, and that's how it's going to respond. Obviously, you're going to have to create instruction sets. You're going to have to give it data to be trained on, but it's always going to behave, I want to say, with a certain mindset. And this is very much in its infancy right now. I can't even think of an off-the-shelf tool that's using it, but I'll try to drop some links in the description below if you want to check those out, because I'll check out what new developments have happened with Anthropic as it relates to constitutional AI. So one thing I said in the session is that LLMs, when I use the term AI or AI system, I'm just referring to the whole ecosystem. I don't want to get into terms because that's the one thing I find very irritating in the AI landscape is people just keep adding these terms to make it sound more complicated than it is. And sure, it's a big ecosystem. Sure, it can do a lot of things. But when I say AI, I just mean, maybe you're talking to ChatGPT or Google Gemini, or you're using a tool that has some AI capabilities built in, etc. So with this one, I kind of made the joke that AI is like the smartest 10-year-old you've ever talked to. It just wants to please you. You've probably seen responses where it's things like, oh, that's such a great idea. Here's how I can help you with that. Or here's your 3 bullet points type of thing. So it's almost kind of reinforcing your own bias because it wants to please you. And today, there's something called chain of thought. So I put train of thought on the slides here, which is not correct. It should be chain of thought. And what that's doing is if you've used ChatGPT o3 or the new version of Google Gemini, it's actually spitting out how it's thinking about it, which is interesting. So last year, AI would hallucinate often. Maybe it's still doing that today. I haven't noticed much of it, but at least you can see how it's thinking through the problem. So it's kind of evolved into a system two type of thing. So it's thinking, it's reasoning with itself, and there are many different models that will allow you to do this. So ChatGPT even has, I, somebody should teach them how to name their releases because the numbers are very confusing for non-techie people. So you can use a simple model that will just spit out an answer really fast. You can switch to o3, which is their reasoning model, which is going to give you exactly how it's thinking through the problem. And then you can interact with it in a bit of a different way. And last year that wasn't possible. It would just take the data that it's been trained on, which was pretty old data, try to come up with something and spit it out for you. You may have heard the term agentic AI or AI agents. Again, people keep throwing these new terms on there, and I made the joke that if you asked 10 people what an AI agent was, you'd get 40,000 responses. And you can go ahead and try this. Go to LinkedIn and post, this is what an AI agent is, and then you'll get 1,000 people telling you that you're wrong and it's this, not that. I don't really care about that. So it's a matter of perspective. I see an agent as an employee. So it's somebody who can do stuff and they can talk to each other. So I have 11 agents behind the scenes in Lean Change that do stuff for me. As an example, one of them is a sentiment analyzer. So if I need to analyze sentiment for anything, I send it to that one. It will go do it and it will give me an answer, but that's the only thing it does. I have an agent that helps the Lean Change trainers that's in retraining right now because the capabilities have increased so much it needs a bit of a rewrite. There's also a customer support one and a bunch of other ones. And they do stuff and they can talk to each other. Now, agents can make decisions if they are trained that way. If you're not technical, this might be a little bit difficult to do. There are some tools out there. I'll try to drop some in the description if I remember. But I could do things like I could have an agent that can make a decision on giving the customer a coupon. So for example, if someone's chatting to Mr. Zircon, my support person, and they're upset about something, maybe they bought a book or something and they didn't get the download or whatever, I can have that agent decide to give that person 10% off of the self-study course or something. It can go ahead and generate the coupon automatically, send it to them, and there you go. So agents, maybe that's the thing that is going to scare people into thinking that AI is going to take jobs. So, but that's really what agents can help with. So when I talked about over specialization in big teams, even though this was a change management conference, I think those days of specialization in big teams is gone or going away. You know, even if you're working in an enterprise, you're not going to need a change management team of 20 people anymore. You can have 3 people, and then you can have 10 agents or AI bots or language models or something that are your co-pilots. I even said I hate saying that out loud, and I do hate saying that out loud right now, but that's where the world's going. I'll drop some links in the description below where I believe it was the NVIDIA CEO, NVIDIA, what he said something like 50% of white collar jobs are going to be gone because of AI. And that sounds scary on the surface, but technology has always created more jobs than it's destroyed. So what I recommended in my session was, you know, if you're a change manager and you're worried about it, become an expert in AI. Become a subject matter expert. You know, if you're working on an ERP system, you work with SMEs and all the different areas of that system, become an SME in AI. Because not only could you use AI for change stuff, you could help your organization shift their AI strategy entirely if you learn this stuff more. So I think creative problem solvers are the people who are going to replace most people in organizations, regardless of discipline. My bias, change management is a problem solving and a creative field. Most people in the field operate as order takers, as in, this is my framework, these are my steps, I am going to do these steps and implement it back. But I think depending on the context, we know that doesn't work. But if I'm curious, I'm a problem solver, and I'm creative, I can use AI to help the organization solve problems. And that's what I believe change management is. You might disagree. But anyway, those were kind of the 4 points that I talked about. And then I got into 3 main cases for using AI in change management. Sense making obviously being number one, because I talked about this and it was funny. The person who talked after me was kind of showing the opposite a little bit. Um, we dumbed down our surveys so they look nice in charts. The person after me showed a bunch of charts with numbers. And I was like, I get it. I get why we want to do it. But saying 80% of people are happy with the change, that's not a story. That's, even though it was pitched as that's a story. Turn that into a story as opposed to just a chart with the numbers in it. For me, it's about what did we learn about those 80% of people that are happy and how can we apply that next time? That's what accelerated sense making is. So you don't need to put how happy or how much do you agree from 0 to 5. You can say, tell me how the change is going. You can analyze that sentiment in real time. You can apply a score after the fact if you want, but you want actionable data. And that's probably the best use case for change management, because I think we make decisions with incorrect or incomplete data because there's too much of it, right? It's easy to put a survey with 20 questions and get a bunch of charts out of it, but to generate meaning from that is difficult. So you can leave your questions open-ended and AI can help you analyze this massive amount of information. Obviously boosting creativity. And while I said reducing bias, we're all biased towards something. When AI, I've had people come to me and say, oh my God, I had this great idea. I put it into AI and it told me it was a great idea. You're just reinforcing your own bias. So what you can do is you can tell the AI what your biases are, ask it to play devil's advocate. You can use the 6 thinking hats and say, please respond or give me an answer from the perspective of each of the 6 thinking hats. And number 3, this one's obvious because people have already been doing this. It stops manual busy work. This is why I said the days of big change teams is gone or going away, because a lot of the times we're doing busy work, and I've been there too. Can you make a presentation about this? Or can you make a wiki page about that? And it's just stuff that sometimes you need to do, but it's just irritating. And there's so many of those things that just take time. All of that goes away. All right, so I'm going to get into the questions. The one thing that I did talk about when I got into doing a live demo was take all of this with a grain of salt, because I haven't talked about ethics or privacy. I'm talking about possibilities right now. So your context will determine how you use AI. But the one thing I did say was I know plenty of people who are in companies where they've banned the use of AI, and I think that is the stupidest possible thing these companies could be doing. I get fear, I get privacy, I get all this type of stuff. I understand why they're doing it, but I mean, come on, leaders, give your head a shake. If you are stopping people from using these things, they're going to go somewhere else. And those are the people who are going to help you become adaptable. Plus, everybody has a phone. You can ban the tool. They can just point their phone at the screen. So again, maybe that sounds a little bit disruptive and maybe we should be a little bit more thoughtful. The only thing I've learned is leaders want everything faster, better, cheaper for less money. I guess the cheaper meant less money anyway. AI is going to help with certain aspects of that. So let's get into some of the questions. All right, this is more a reminder for me to blur out people's names because they probably don't want them being shown in this video. So first question was, how does one validate if the data is real versus fake? That really depends on the context, in my opinion. So if you are putting data into the system, so you've got, an Ask the Change project bot, and you've put in your survey data, you've put in your strategy docs and all that kind of stuff, the data is going to be as real as you put in there. So it depends what this person was asking. It's really a matter of perspective. When it comes to being presented with data from AI, you can ask it things like, are you sure? Tell me the sources where you got this from. I read something that is different from what you're giving me here. Can you fact check that? So you might have to ask it back. And again, this is where, more non-technical people use AI as a search engine, or I give it something, it gives me an answer. Okay, good, copy paste. And don't do that. If you be skeptical, to just practice this out. So I've had it try to write code and do some other things where it's giving me I know are wrong answers. And I'm like, are you sure? And it will rethink through it. So you may want to use GPT-o3 or Google Pro 2.5, which has a chain of thought. So it's giving you reasoning behind it. But, uh, you know, it's this is kind of what I teach my kids. Don't believe anything you read on the internet. Take in multiple sources and make the decision on your own. This is a common one too. So how do you ensure or manage ethical use of AI? Also, how do you protect organizational information? So the ethical use of AI is us, right? Like I mentioned a little bit earlier that people have tested if you threaten AI, you're going to get better responses. Um, I'll put these links in the description. I mentioned this in my now completely outdated AI and Change book because it came out a year ago that nobody cares about ethics back then, right? They just wanted AI to make their viral cat video. Now more people are talking about it, which I think is great. So if you're using it in an organizational context, that's more human operator guidelines than anything else. So maybe constitutional AI, when it becomes more of a thing and it's built into models, is going to help with those ethics. Now, if you ask AI about politics, at least Google Gemini, it won't give you an answer because it's afraid it's going to give you a fake answer or it's going to pick up a source that's not entirely accurate. So it will just flat out refuse. So you can't ensure ethical use of AI because you can't control the people using it. It'll just never happen. Doesn't matter if you have guidelines in your organization or not. In fact, there's a company I'm working with now that has banned AI tools internally, public tools, but the person I'm working with is working with the CEO on bots that are being created on public tools, which is against the company policy. So these things are going to happen. You cannot ensure people are going to use it in an ethical way. And you can kind of manage it, I guess. You can put guidelines in place, like I said, but hmm, that's really up to the operator. How do you protect organizational information? So CIO Magazine recently, I think a couple of months ago, put an article out that 80% of companies are moving away from internal POCs and moving towards using public tools because internal POCs, number one, there's not enough expertise to build them. Two, they're slow to build and they're expensive. And it's not, and they're doing that because they want to keep the database. I'm going to call it a database. That's not right. So if you're technical watching this, please don't yell at me. They want to keep their database private behind their firewall, so nothing can access that data, which we know everybody has phones, everybody has seen data leaks from companies. But if you're using public tools, it's not entirely clear what these language models do with your data. Now, if you're using ChatGPT and you're creating a custom GPT, for example, um, allegedly that is going to stay in your own little container. So while your information may be public, it's private inside of this little bubble that you've created. The other thing is, um, you can even try this, right? Try to use any AI tool to find private company strategy documents for your competitor. You're not going to find it. So it's a understandable fear, but you know, ethics and protecting your information, if those are the things that matter the most, if you're in healthcare, highly regulated, don't use AI or always use everything internal, which is going to be a lot more expensive and probably much, much worse than some of the public tools. All right. How can AI enhance stakeholder engagement and resistance management during large-scale organizational change? First of all, if you know anything about lean change, I don't believe in resistance management. I believe that the reaction we are seeing to the change is data that helps us figure out what to do next. I don't see it as a negative thing at all. The best way AI can help with this is there's nowhere to hide from the data. So I made the joke about the watermelon status report where the outside is green and the inside is red. That's because we clean stuff as it goes higher up in the organization. So the people who have to make decisions are making decisions with incomplete or incorrect data. If you are using, customer feedback, employee feedback, survey data, it's open-ended questions like I recommended earlier. Um, all of that data is going into your AI system. So if somebody puts a negative, rude comment, this is really up to the people who are the gatekeepers for the data that goes in. You want that data in there. You want a single source of truth, and you want to look at those patterns, and you want to consider the outliers, because normally what happens, you could put a survey out to 100 people. If there's one really negative comment, guess where our brains go? To that one thing, even though that's not the pattern and not the real sentiment. So AI can do this in real time automatically. It is ridiculously easy to make a Google form and tie an AI system directly to that Google form. So as data is coming in, you can ask it questions in real time. That's obviously an oversimplified example, but the tool set allows you to do stuff like this. So that's how it will enhance stakeholder engagement, is because they're getting real data to make decisions from. And you can automate all this. Every week, you can very easily send out what's the sentiment this week to the leaders. And then make the data available to everybody, make the bots available to everybody. And of course, it's risky, but that's what change is. If you want to do a meaningful change, it has to be real, it has to be raw, and you cannot do what change managers have done in the past, which is to make everything look clean and rosy and everything's great and hide things and control things. You just can't do that anymore. You've got to make all this data publicly available inside your organization. And AI doesn't care. It just sees the data. It doesn't care if it's negative or positive. It's just going to give you the real story. But that takes a lot of courage on the behalf of change agents to do that. Okay, how do we make use of AI attractive to senior leaders, especially during organizational change? Best way is use some of the ideas that I've already talked about in this video and sit down with them over Zoom or in person and just try some stuff out. Use any public language model, and you can just delete the stuff afterwards. But if you look at the three things I said that AI can help the most with change, just do a live demo with them. Drop me a note somewhere. I'm pretty easy to find if you want to do one. But once they see it, they'll be like, the light bulbs will go on, and they'll figure out maybe there is something here. Of course, there's a risk with that too, because some will say, hey, maybe we don't need this change manager who's doing this demo for us. So it's a very complex question. But for me, if you want to make AI attractive to senior leaders, just do it with them and show them the capabilities and then make a decision on what to do next. All right, so that is it for the questions. I did mention in the talk that I'm a realist. So some of the things I've said in this video or even in the talk maybe they're perceived as a little bit abrasive or a little bit negative, especially the thing around big change teams are gone or going away. I don't think wishing and hoping changes reality. And I think in any discipline, whether it's agile coaching, whether it's development, testing, change management, whatever, HR, there's this feeling of echo chamber that we want to hear the things that we want to hear, and we want to reinforce that everything's going to be okay. And that's not how my brain works. Like I mentioned, leaders want faster, better, cheaper. That's all they care about. It doesn't mean they don't care about people, but I've seen this with big organizations who have completely eradicated their agile coaching teams because they want to save $10 million a year, and they don't see that group providing direct value, or they think they can replace that whole group with an AI bot. So all the wishing and hoping isn't going to change that perception. So the best thing we can do to show value as change agents is to start using it and start generating social proof and work with them to show the capabilities and really become an AI expert, not only in using AI for change work, but align it to organizational strategies and help organizations figure out how they can use AI to become more adaptable, kind of is my view. So there's a bunch of links in the description below. You can always go to leanchange.org/AI, and you can use our free AI survey. You can see what people are afraid of, what people are using. Our AI hub is free for everyone as well. Create a free account on leanchange.org. You can find tools, and the difference with this AI hub is that all of the tools are rated for how useful they are in a change context, plus there's prompt tutors and a bunch of other bots and stuff like that. So drop a question, comment down below. This went a lot longer than I thought, so I'm going to stop talking now. And like and subscribe. See you next time.